Hello everybody, welcome to Tactica Imperialis and to today's video. Today is episode 13 of A Town Called Mallus, my Warhammer Age of Sigmar hobby project for the Stormcast Eternals. This is pretty much the final episode because next week, as you're watching this video, I'll be starting my exams. They are, of course, my priority for the next few weeks because, well, they're exams, they're important, at least to me. So my focus is going to be on that, so I'm not going to be doing any hobby at all. Also, I have to consider the logistics of getting this army home again, so I'm thinking I'll probably finish the model that I haven't finished, and then I'll probably not touch them again. I will do a showcase video for this army, but this is the last time we're going to be adding in new stuff to the army. And unfortunately time's got the better of me, so we're going to be adding in nearly two units. I can't show you the final model of the second unit because I haven't had time to finish it. I do apologise. I know that's not going to take too long, so to keep this episode at a decent length, I'm going to do a segment at the end where I'm going to talk about the project as a whole, because this has been the first time I've gone all in on Age of Sigmar. I've done an AOS project before. I did an Elfin Adventure a couple of years ago when AOS was brand new. And while I enjoyed AOS back then, it was a very different AOS. This was pre-General's Handbook, pre-almost any battle tome being released. I think maybe Seraphon or Sylvaneth came out whilst I was playing with that project. But this is the first time that AOS is in a full, complete state while I've had a project on the go. So it's been my chance to really get involved with it lore-wise, rules-wise, and collecting-wise. And I just want to talk about the effect this project has had and where we're going in future, because of course, just because one project ends doesn't mean that I'm done with this hobby at all. It means I've just got to start something new. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Though I think most of you who watch my live streams or maybe can sort of infer from the way I talk about certain things, you might be able to guess what I'm going to be doing next. But that's for the later part of the video. For now, I just want to thank you all for coming along and joining me with this project. I know it's been a bit of a long one and been a bit back and forth. We had a period off and then we're on again. And I've been doing it in 2 languages, and anyone who's stuck with the series, either leaving comments or just checking in with it, thank you very much for sticking it out. I do appreciate it, because the first time I've done a full hobby project where I've tried to stick to a schedule, get an episode out every couple of weeks, and always be adding models into the army. So the first time I've properly done and completed it. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you again for that. And if you've been watching the French stuff, then, well, credit to you. I don't know what possessed you, but hey, there you go. Something I wanted to try whilst I was on my academic year in France. So, without any further ado, let's get to the models. We'll start with the completed unit first, and then we'll do the incomplete one, because I think there's a little bit more to talk about with them there. So, thank you again. This is the 13th part of A Town Called Mallus, my Warhammer Age of Sigmar hobby project. Let's go. So, unit number 1 for today is a unit that I've been meaning to finish for a really long time. It's 5 Vanguard Hunters, completing the army drawn from the Blight War box set. I bought a box of 10, I built 10 out of the Vanguard Brotherhood box, and then 5 from Blight War. I had the option of building them either with the swords, the Storm Sabers, or with the Shock Hand Axes. Either of them would have been completely fine, and I chose to build them with the Storm Sabers. The reason for this is pretty much arbitrary, because Vanguard Hunter squads are from 5 to 15 in size. Therefore, these guys can serve either as a separate unit, or they can reinforce the 10-man unit with Storm Sabers that I already have. It is for that reason, therefore, that they are painted with the red tabards that we haven't seen on units, actually, in quite a while. Because of the fact that they can join the main unit, and sometimes I will field them as a unit of 15 from time to time, I decided, yep, let's have them with the red cloak so that when they're together, they don't clash and look weird. Also, I didn't want to buy like a green or something. In terms of assembly, they are built pretty much straight as normal. I have basically just swapped around the legs for the primes and compass bearers, as I've done on every single Vanguard Hunter prime and compass bearer. So this was the only set of legs on which we didn't have a compass up to this point. I've got one on all the other 4 sets, and this is the only set, well, there were 2 sets without prime on because I built 1 set of 5 without a prime when I built the original 10 sword squad. So because it was these 2, this one had to take the compass, therefore this one had to take the prime. The other three at the back, you can recognise these guys have obviously been at least primed and compass bearers in the past. You can see it with the tree, the running legs, and with the little lion knee pad. So there's nothing particularly special. What's interesting with these guys really is just, it's interesting to look at them and compare them to the original hunters. So I brought over, assuming it doesn't break, one of the original Vanguard Hunters, who is based. These guys aren't. I have done a little bit of basing in the interim between the start of the since I got models done and now. So I've based all the heroes, for example, but I haven't based most things. I might just do some basing during the exam period just to as a bit of a de-stress. But it's interesting just to see the difference and see how the two compare. I mean, the difference is not that great. The main difference, I think, primarily is going to be in the use of the gold. So back when I was doing the first unit of hunters, I was using Sigmarite a lot more than I was using auric armor. So the gold on this guy's shoulder pad, for example, is a lot brighter than it is over here, where it's still quite washed. And it's an interesting thing to see how I've changed my approach as the project has gone on. Turning them around, oh, my hand's getting really in the way today. Turning them around, you can see the cloaks are, well, still done exactly the same way. I'd like to think I've got a bit better at doing it as I've gone along with the dry brushing so it doesn't get so much into the recesses. But generally, it's not that much of a difference. I haven't evolved the painting of the project much as I've gone along. I've been on quite a limited palette. And I've also just wanted things to be consistent, so I've not changed them up all that much. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Extra. You can get out of here now. And I'll turn this guy back around. The other thing that's interesting to note from the first unit compared to the last is the assembly. Because you will remember if you cast your minds back to episode 2 or 3 when I added the Vanguard Hunters in, I spent a fair amount of time complaining about their customizability and ease of assembly. I will put that down to the fact that I'm bad at reading instructions. Basically, there is a very simple system to building these guys, and if you stick to it, you can create a relatively decent mix of characters, of poses, and things like that. Now, I'm not saying you can create infinite variety because each torso is bound to a set of arms, but each set of arms is separate from the legs, so if you have 5 arm combinations and 5 leg combinations, you can create 25 entirely unique models, even before you account for weapons, heads, and the like. Admittedly, if you want to keep the dynamics of the model going, then you might want to consider having the cloaks assigned to certain legs better, or certain heads being assigned so that the top knot flows with the cloak. It's a small detail, but if you're someone who cares about aesthetics, that's something you have to consider. But I will retract slightly my statement on Vanguard Hunters. They're not difficult to assemble as long as you follow the instructions. I think there's a message in there somewhere. As for gameplay, well, the same sort of thing applies to these guys as applies to my other Vanguard Hunters. Because they have their own prime and their own compass bearer, they can serve as a single unit of 5 that can flank and assassinate units. They can also serve as guardians, or not guardians, or yes, objective cappers, or as guides if I run the Storm Vortex Garrison Battalion I discussed previously. Having a small 5-man unit being able to do that is very, very useful. Admittedly, I now have 25. What that means I can do basically is run the Vanguard Chamber at a reasonable size without having to compromise too much on other things, because I'll have enough battle line just in Vanguard Hunters. This also leads into a battalion, the Vanguard Angelos Conclave, I think. Is it Angelos or Justicar? Hang on. It is... Oh, they don't have that bloody keywords on this thing. Yes, they do. Yes, Angelos. The Angelos Conclave. This is the primary battalion that goes into making a Vanguard Chamber. And it's comprised of 3 to 9 units of Vanguard Hunters and 1 to 3 units of Paladors. Admittedly, most of the benefits from it are requiring more Paladors, so you need to get the Paladors up to 3 units to gain the majority of the benefits off of it, which is why I've not discussed it in the past despite being able to run it ever since I added the 15th Vanguard Hunter to the army. because I just don't feel it's necessary to run such a thing, where most of the benefits are locked behind 3 Palador units without having 3 Palador units. The other Vanguard battalion, for those who don't know, is the Justicar Conclave, which requires you to take 3 units of Raptors and Ether Wings. So that battalion is completely off my radar right now. And those two combine along with the Lord of Kilo and 3 to 9 Knights, Venators, or Azeros in any combination to create the Vanguard Auxiliary Chamber. Now that thing is powerful. As you'd expect from a battalion of battalions, that thing can hit like a brick. If I remember correctly, it's either +1 attack or +1 to hit in the shooting phase. It does a lot of damage. So it is really, really good. But the requirements to take it and make it function is, well, 3 units of Hunters, 1 unit of Paladors, 3 units of Raptors, 3 units of Ether Wings, 3 Flying Knights, and a Lord of Kilo, and all the battalion points on top of that. It's a lot. And to get the benefits out of the Hunters, you need 3 units of Paladors, which is probably a good thing anyway, because then you've got more options. And then when you've got your General Vanguard Chamber, you might want to consider, I don't know, the Shadow Hunters, which is Neve's formation, but that has no points. Oh, yes, it does have points. Which is the one from Blight War, which I've also been able to run for the longest time, but actually no, I can't because it doesn't have Ether Wings. So you start to see where the problem arises. If you want to try and take the Vanguard Chamber at full stack and then mix in the extra stuff like Neve Black Talon, you need a lot of Paladors. Paladors are probably your limiting factor. Well, for me, it's Ether Wings because I haven't built them yet, but that's purely for logistical reasons. Realistically, Paladors are the limiting factor because they cost nearly 250 points a unit, and they are, well, I'll get on to Paladors. So that is the Hunters, and just a little bit of explanation about what these guys can do. You've seen these guys like twice now in the series. I've done 2 full showcases of them, so I don't think there's too much to say really aside from their just aesthetic changes. So with all that said, that's these guys done, and they'll complete the battle line portion of the army. Admittedly, I have kind of shot myself in the face in that I have to take a Lord of Kilo General right now, because I've got Liberators and Judicators. I've got 20 in total between them, and while I could take them into 4 units of 5, that just doesn't suit me. So I've kind of locked myself into Lord of Kilo Generals, but I love the Lord of Kilo's command ability, so I'm not complaining at all. Anyway, that's these guys, so let's move on to the second unit, and the last unit, which is sadly incomplete, to finish off the project. And the second and final unit that we'll be adding in to Project Stormcast, as I so christened this way back in September. I just christened it Project Stormcast before a town called Mallus, is Vanguard Paladors. The last unit from the Blight War box that I was yet to add into the army, and unfortunately I didn't get them finished. I have actually assembled the third model, which is the Prime, as you can possibly tell by the fact that this guy's got a purple shoulder pad. It is the Prime. I've got him ready to be painted, so the Griff Charger is assembled, the torso is as assembled as it's gonna be. It's ready to be painted, I just haven't had time, unfortunately, and I apologise for that, because I wanted to have this unit complete, and then I could say with a bit more finality, the army is complete, but them's the breaks. So, this unit of Paladors is armed with the Star Strike Javelins, the other unit option, which is something I just kind of wanted to do, was have both options, because, I don't know, I like being able to test various things, because just a reminder statistically on how the 2 weapons compare. So if you take the Shock Hand Axe, which is the other weapon that the other unit is built with, you get 2 melee attacks that hit on 3s, wound on 3s with no rend and damage 1. If you take the Star Strike Javelin, you get an 18-inch ranged attack that hits on 3s, wounds on 3s with 1 rend and damage 1, and a single melee attack with a 2-inch reach, 4s and 3s, rend 1, damage 1. So this Palador unit is going to be better in ranged combat than the axe-wielding unit, whilst in melee it has a worse hit roll and less attacks, but gains a point of rend and range on the axe. Therefore, I think statistically the Javelin is just better because, well, you've got a proper ranged attack. I mean, I'm not discounting the fact that the Bolt Storm pistol exists. I mean, it's sat right here. And that's 2 9-inch range attacks that are 3s and 4s. That's not to be discounted even on the axe-wielding unit. But the Javelins really give you that extra bit of punch. I wanted to have the axes as well, so as I had both options, because I like to experiment and have a bit of everything in the army. But I think if we broke it down to raw stats, we'd find that the javelin was the superior. The points cost doesn't change, just for the record. In terms of assembly, I feel like I've sort of got the hang of this one now. You might remember when I assembled the Paladins the first time, they were a nightmare to assemble. And the reason for that is the way everything fits together at the end and how they want you to put it together. So if I take this guy on the left as my example, there is a joint that connects the waist to the saddle. And if you put that in at the last minute, as I did the first time, you have problems because it hasn't set solid, and if it's not lined up absolutely perfectly, everything else is just awkward. As a result, I highly, highly recommend that with this model, this one here, you put the lower torso into the model first. You paint it like that, if you can. Or at the very least, when you've painted it, you stick it in way before you attach the legs, the torso, or anything else to the Griff Charger. You can assemble the entire Griff Charger in one go, that's what I did, but get that torso joint in first. With this guy, who's only got the one leg, well, one-legged Griff Chargers on the taloned foot is a pain in the butt to assemble anyway, but you can sort of see maybe he's off the saddle. Is there a good angle? Yeah, here you go. So he's not fully in the saddle, and he's designed that way. So how they advise you, the tails get in the way so much, how they advise you put this guy together is using the legs to slot into their assigned positions to then attach the torso into, or to attach the waist into. And you can do this, and I do recommend you kind of need to do this. Get both the legs in first, then get the torso in, and then build up over it. In terms of sub-assemblies, I can actually show you the sub-assemblies I've been working with. So if I just bring in the Prime I'm working on, so you've got the Griff Charger fully built. I've then got the upper torso and the Starsight Javelin as one sub-assembly. The torso, the waist and lower body itself is one separate assembly, and this one is one you can glue in like that, but that makes it awkward to paint, so I'm painting it separately. You keep the head separate under every circumstance, and then I've kept this arm separated just because lining it up would be a little bit difficult because I don't have the cloak on, because the cloak needs to go on a little bit later due to the fact that it blocks the entirety of the rear of the armor. So that's the sort of plan that I go with, is I paint it like that, then I attach the cloak and the arm, and I get the torso in, and then I just work up and up and up. It's a bit awkward, it's a bit slow, but you just have to take it in assemblies, be patient, and it can be done. You just have to be very on the ball. As for painting, I wanted to mix up the exact colour schemes again, so no two Griff Chargers are identical. You may remember the last unit, I had a unit that was in quite dark blue, then I had one with Hellion green on Stegodon scale, and I had a blue with skink blue. This one, I've got, again, Stegodon scale green with skink blue, like for Justinian, but with white feathers and red plating. So it's just a slightly different colour set again, and you probably can't really see it, but the belt is in blue on this unit, as is typical for much of the stuff. Also, I'm aware there's a lot of gleam on it. There's not normally that much sheen on these models. I guess that what this model's wash just dried particularly shiny. With this model, I've done something completely different, and I've gone with Zerus Purple, which is the new name for Lich Purple, with Stegodon scale green feathers and white-grey plating. So that's an entirely new design for me. I thought about going red like Narkisa Wildwalker, my second Lord of Kilo, but thought, no, maybe I shouldn't. And for the Prime, the final Prime, I'm thinking I'm probably going to go with a blue, and I'm not sure. I'm still working on that one, but I'm thinking it will probably involve purple and blue, and then a third colour, either red or probably red feather,
because I haven't got that in this unit yet. So I'll see how that one goes, and if I get a chance to do a stream where I get to paint him, then we can sort it out there. And that, I think, is your lot. There's not a huge amount to say about this unit that I didn't say previously. What I will say is that 5 wound 4-up cavalry is very good. It's expensive, but it is good. Like, that's the same level as the Ideneth Eel cavalry. It's slightly more wounds, but less resilient because of shields and Forgotten Nightmares. But it's a really nice unit, and whilst I haven't had much chance to use them to their full effect, I reckon that in the right hands they could be one of the most useful units around. And that's it. That is all of the units that we're going to be adding to the army, and this brings us, I did the mathematics of it, the paladins that we added in the last part brought the army to 4,000 points, and that included the 5 Vanguard Hunters that you saw previously. The Knight Vexillor then brought it up to 4,140, and when the Prime is finished, these Paladors will bring it to 4,360, I think. Then add in the Ether Wings that I haven't done yet, and we arrive at basically 4,500 points, minus 20. But 4.5k points for the project once the Ether Wings are done. I'd say for all that we've done with this project, that's a good total to end. That's a nice roundish number, 4,500 points, and it's a really good army, and it shows what you can do with access to good box sets. Seriously, box sets saved my life. It's a bit of a shame the Stormcast Vanguard Start Collecting came out so late, because if that had been out 12 months ago, I could have started off the army with a load of Keylor, Vanguard Hunters, and Paladors right out of the gate. Alas, it was not to be. The Vanguard Brotherhood and Blight War was enough. So there you go. That's all of the units. Now, I want to do a segment where I discuss just the project and the future. So I'll get to that in a moment. But if you're just here for models, thank you very much for sticking it out. And I do hope you've enjoyed it. So let's move on to the final section of the entire project.
So, here we are, the end of A Town Called Mallus, and what a year it's been. It's been a really good year for this, hobby-wise, because I had no idea I was going to finish this project. I really did not know if I was going to finish the project, and so I'm really glad to have seen it through and got it done to the end. And for those of you who stuck it out, as I said in the introduction, thank you very much for sticking it out. I do appreciate it. Let me just explain why I got into doing this project in the first place and what this project has meant for me this year. Because as much as it's been great to get a new army, I've just got models off on this side, so I'm sort of loving to look at them. As much as it's been good to just have hobby to do, it's been a bit more than that this year, and I want to talk about that a bit more generally. So when it was this time last year, May, June time of 2017, I did not care about Age of Sigmar. I barely cared. I didn't have a problem with it. Like, it was kind of fun to play from time to time. But as I said in the New Year's video, the lore was really hard to get access to at times, and the release schedule was so crap that, well, excuse my language, that was so crap that you just couldn't expect anything to be done. So I had an army that I had no lore for and no expectation of getting a release for. Basically, I didn't care, because my army was kind of bad, because I was going up against an army that was updated, and so I was always getting hammered. I just didn't care about Age of Sigmar at that time. But I was convinced to get the Stormcast Battle Tome just to catch me up on the lore of the thing, really, because it would have been a good way to just get an introduction, because the Stormcast is so integral to the early lore of AOS. And as me and Kieran sat in the pub, literally in the pub, reading the Stormcast Battle Tome, just getting some insights, it really grabbed me. And at that point I knew, right, okay, I think I want a Stormcast army now. So I got sent some spare bits from the Age of Sigmar starter box that I could practice on. I didn't really get that much done, but I did a little bit. And then I came out to France and I bought some Paladins, I bought a load of Keylor, and the rest is history. The rest you know. I have an army that is now sat at 4,500 points, and I've really enjoyed collecting it. And thanks to the Vanguard Brotherhood, thanks to Blight War, and if I'd started later, thanks to the Stormcast Eternals Vanguard Start Collecting box, I had a really good incentive to go down the route I wanted to go down pretty much from the beginning. I mean, I started with a load of Keylor. It kind of makes sense that I'd go down that route with the Vanguard Chamber from the off. But this has not just been good for modelling, because it's this year's allowed me to engage with Age of Sigmar on more levels than just, oh, the models look pretty. We had the second General's Handbook, which updated a few things and added some really fun narrative aspects to the game, like siege and treachery, which will have multiplayer gameplay, as well as general balancing and more options for match play, which is great. And then we had, most importantly, I think of all, Malign Portents. Malign Portents has been so important and so integral to Age of Sigmar this year, because just the Malign Portents website, we got a map. Like, we got a goddamn map. That's so important, and you don't realise how important it is until you get one. We got a map of the realms. We saw how the realms were linked together. We got a bit more of an explanation of things. Sure, we'd had little microcosm maps of different realms in different battle tomes and books and things, but to get an overarching look at things was so important, and we got that. Plus, with the stories that come out on Malign Portents, they still come out today, just teasing and showing little insights into different people's lives and different factions and the way everything works, was just so mind-opening to what Age of Sigmar can do. And then they followed it up with a fantastic set of releases. The Malign Portents book, whilst I haven't used it much, was a very fun twist on the game. And they also followed it up with a global campaign in Dread Solstice, which was really fun. I didn't get a chance to participate, but it looked like a lot of fun. And then they followed that up with Legions of Nagash, Daughters of Cain, and now Idoneth Deepkin. 3 huge factions in terms of getting people excited. Legions of Nagash was important for death players. Daughters of Cain and Idoneth, whilst not integral to getting people just updating old armies, because the Idoneth are brand new and the Daughters of Cain were a very small faction, the model quality that came with those 2 books and the lore insights they offered to elven players of old like me, you can just tell them as you look through the people you follow on social media who are hobbyists, and the excitement that came for Idoneth and Daughters of Cain and everything else this year has really invigorated the AOS side of the community. And more people have gotten into it, which has been fantastic. And I've been able to see that, and whilst not massively engage with it, be part of it. And that's so, so good. And if I hadn't done a town called Mallus, which is still a terrible pun, and I can't believe nobody suggested anything better. If I hadn't started this project, I don't know. I don't think I'd have caught on with the engagement so much until the Daughters of Cain release, when I could have actually started to care again. But, yeah, this has been a really important project in that front, because it's gotten me back into AOS at a time when AOS is starting to be taken seriously again, and they're pushing AOS and giving us, well, just stuff, which is stuff we didn't have before, and I really have to be appreciative of that. As for the project itself, because I can talk about the overarching effects of the project and why I got into it in the first place, I'm just going to take that off. But there's more to it than that. There really is, and this project has been such a pleasure to work on. It's the first time I've worked with an army that had a battle tome and up-to-date models. And the models were so fun to work on. You can argue that Stormcast are Sigmarines. I've heard that one bandied about so many times. And fine, they have a bit of a look of Space Marines in some way. The way they're treated in the lore, they are the super soldiers of the good guy god, ergo Space Marines. But they're not the same. They're so not the same. And whilst I've never cared so much for Space Marines, I like their character and I sort of like their look, I've never wanted to collect them. Not really. I mean, I've dabbled with it, but I've never gone in on it. Stormcast, I really did, because they have this humanity to them that something resonates with me a bit more than they do with Space Marines. There's actually a really recent story on Malign Portents about the reforging, and it's creepy, but it's really, really good. But the models themselves were a real pleasure to paint. When you find a good scheme that you can easily replicate, it can be a real pleasure just to paint stuff quickly. And I feel like I got very lucky with the scheme that I got with the Sons of Mallus. Finding that scheme in the Stormcast Battletome and being able to do it was what allowed me to really care about painting these models. If it had just been Hammers of Sigmar, which was gold on gold on gold, I mean, I've painted gold on gold before when I did Magnus, but that was a one-off special model. I'm allowed to make exceptions and go to town on that. With this army, I haven't had to do that. It's a very basic scheme that I've used, but it's a very repeatable scheme, and it looks reasonably good. I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to win Golden Demon, because it's not, but it's tabletop worthy, and when you add the basing into it, some people have said that it doesn't look so good without the basing colour, it does add that extra pop to it, and I really am happy with how the scheme has turned out. Plus, it's given me a various different textures and things to paint, because as much as you can just say, oh, it's dudes in black armour with gold trim and some purple, yes it is, but then you've got the fabrics, which I've been able to mix up the colours for. You've got the metals, and of course the mounts. The mounts have been really, really good for allowing me to mix things up with the Dracos and the Griff charges, and then the different colour schemes corresponding to the Extremis chamber, the Vanguard chamber, the Warrior chamber, and all the little things that I've done with that. And then there's been a small amount, and I mean a small amount, of conversion opportunity, of hobbying, messing about. I've not done much of this, I'll admit, I've not done a lot of this, but the weapon swap for my Lord Celestins on Draco, the head swaps on my on the Knight Questor, on the Lord Relictor, and on the Knight Vexilor. The little changes. Age of Sigmar has a problem where the models are not that convertible. You can convert them and they look great when they are converted, but they're not always that easy to convert and kit bash if you're not experienced at that sort of thing. So being able to do that and try it and make it work has been really enjoyable, and I'm glad with the results. I'm really pleased with the results of the changes I've made, even if some of them look like very botched conversion work. Gabriel Shawheart. Don't understand why that model's built the way it is. It just is. It's dumb. But with all that said, the models have been really, really good, and the paint schemes really helped me to stay focused on them. And do I have any regrets? I don't know. I feel like that when I look back on this project, I think, well, maybe I shouldn't have added this unit, or maybe I should have done this in a different order, or maybe I really, really should have added that Star Drake, because trust me, I've wound up adding in a Star Drake. But I'm nearly at 5,000 points now, and if I just took a Star Drake, for example, that takes the army up to 500,000 points. Nice round number. Or I could say, let's ignore the Griffhounds for a minute, let's add in a bunch more Draco Cavalry, that brings me up to 5,000 points, and I can start doing some fun stuff with that. I've got a nice mix of guys. And I'm just really, really happy to have done this project, and to have completed it, because my other series that I did for a hobby project, An Elfin Adventure, where I tried to do a weekly hobby series with my elves, that was a fun project. I enjoyed doing it, and I enjoyed the gameplay side that came with it. I was only adding one unit at the time quite often, but I was playing games nearly every week. So it was interesting to talk about how I felt the game was going at the time, which was, by the way, not great compared to today, and how I felt about the army, which at the time was obviously a very mishmash thing. This was pre-handbook, almost pre-battle tomes. I don't think there were many, if any, battle tomes out back then. Whereas this one has been a bit more spaced out. I've been doing it every 2 weeks, but I've been able to add 2 units at a time in many cases. And while I haven't played as much, I've been able to offer some more insight because I've had a better understanding of the rules. I've played for more time, and people have been playing the game for longer, so they can add more ideas in the comments. But I just wanted to see this through. This has been an important project for me in the sense that it's given me something to do hobby-wise. This year has been a very challenging year for a few reasons. Mainly just with the whole change of scenery and the whole change of system has made it quite a challenging year on that front. So having something consistent, like I have a lore video to put out, I have a hobby video to put out, I have models I want to work on, has been really, really good, and it just helps keep you focused on what you want to do. And I'm not going to say this year was all bad, because I've had a chance to really experiment with the language. And doing this series as a bilingual series has been, well, that was the part I didn't think I was going to see through, if I'm being honest. Having to make 2 videos for the project, basically make the same video twice, where I was trying to do it in English and then trying to replicate it in French, which is the second language, and while it's in a language I'm okay at, I'm not that strong at it. I'm strong enough to hold a conversation with a professor, but to survive a day-to-day life here in France, well, I get by, but I'm not fluent. I'm really, really not fluent. So I wasn't sure if I could make it work, but I did. And I know most people won't have watched it, but doing that for me is just a sense of pride and accomplishment in having not only completed an army, but having completed a hobby project twice, doing it once in English, once in French, and taking advantage of the scenario and the surroundings to really push that side of my learning and try and flex my linguistic muscles in an environment where I'm not being examined for it, if you know what I mean. yeah, it's kind of hard for me to explain some of the things about why I'm so happy I had this project this year and why I'm so happy with the army as a whole. But I've really, really enjoyed working on the Stormcast Eternals and falling in love with Age of Sigmar in a way that I don't think I would have done were it not for doing a project like this. Because I don't know if I'd have been bothered to pick up the General's Handbook. I probably wouldn't have got involved at all until the Daughters of Cain announcement. And well, what would I have done with my time? I don't know. But that is the past and the present. Now let's look to the future, because I'm sure all of you are wondering, well, now you've got this massive Stormcast army, what's next? And I've been wondering the same thing myself. Because for 40k, the Tau have now got their codex. So I could go back and I could experiment with the Tau, see how I feel about them, or whether I want to collect a bit more for them, add some new units, and make them work, which is fine. My other 40k army, the Orcs, haven't got their codex yet, so I'm not sure. I'm not fussed for starting a new 40k army at this time. I know I've said in the past about Drakari, but that was sort of just a passing interest as something that looked really cool in the releases, and that hype has sort of died away now. So I'm thinking my next project will be Age of Sigmar in terms of an actual documented project. I might have the odd Tower unit here and there, and if the Orcs get some really shiny new stuff, I might add a unit here and there. But I'm not going to make a project out of that. No. My next army project will be Age of Sigmar, and I've been umming and ahhing about this pretty much since the releases were announced. So for a while I was thinking, yeah, let's go Daughters of Cain. Because the Daughters of Cain got their battle tome, they got some amazing units and models in Morathi, the Kinnarai, the Melusai, and the old stuff got some really fun bonuses as well. So I was really thinking, yes, let's go Daughters of Cain. I worked it all out with the stream chat. We had a lot of fun discussing it. And I was all set to do it because it had some really interesting lore. They had the Shadowhammer compact, so I could add to Prosecutors and have a mixed army with my Stormcast. And then the Ideneth Deepkin happened, and my mind just went through a loop. Because I had no idea anymore. Did I want Daughters, which I had some models for already? Did I want to go Ideneth? And I've kind of settled on the fact that I want the Ideneth. And part of that is the models, because bloody hellfire between the Eidolon, the Soul Render, the bloody everything in that army is just gorgeous. The Namati are pretty damn good. And I've come round to the Achelian Cavalry. Now that I've seen some other paint schemes and some other looks at them, I've come round to them. They look really good. So the models are stunning. The rules, now that I've seen the rules, I've got the battle tome just sat over there, are so much fun and so much intrigue in how they're going to work. They're so unique in that they're so difficult to shoot, but they hit, and they're a bit of a glass cannon. They have this rising tide feature, and it's really quite fascinating. And then the lore. This was the other thing that convinced me. The Daughters of Cain, whilst they're cool, the Ideneth Deepkin battle tome paints Morathi as the ultimate. Morathi is the order leader you just want to punch. And I'll admit it, I'm too much of a goody two-shoes. And I said, look, Morathi, you're cool, and your intrigue with Malerian and Tyrion and Tactica is fascinating, but you are too much of a bitch. I'm sorry, you're too much of a bitch, and I want to punch you in the face. So, Ideneth. That's not to say that there won't be Daughters of Cain. The sort of plan that I have in mind is to redux the Elfin Adventure, or maybe create an entirely new series with a new punny title if someone can come up with a good pun, and I'll do an Ideneth project. And I'll see how far that goes. I'll maybe do it for a semester, and I'll collect for the Nautilar army. So that will be a really interesting paint scheme, but I'll discuss that at the time. And I'll probably just create an army of that, maybe get it to 1,500, 2,000 points. And then at Christmas, or in January, February time, I'll say, right, do I want to keep going with the Ideneth, or do I want to go and rotate into Daughters of Cain, or has the next set of shiny elf things come out, because Malerian and Tyrion and Tactica are still there, and if they get a really fun faction, am I going to want to commit to them? And so that's what I'm thinking about. So there'll be at least one semester, which might start, it might be in July or August, I'll pick up the first models, it might be in September, I'm not sure yet, where I will properly commit and do the Ideneth project. I'm not going to use the hashtag I saw on Twitter for it, but I will be doing an Ideneth project next. And after that, it will either be, it will be some flavour of elves. It will be, because I want all the elven factions. I'll get Daughters of Cain bulked out. Ideneth, Malerian, Tyrion, and Tactica is probably called the Sith Eye. I don't know what they're going to be really called, but something like that. And then I really don't know. This is the beauty of what Age of Sigmar has done for me. It has got me excited to do more stuff. Damn it! Because now I'm looking at the other AOS armies thinking, evil genius planning. Because Sylvaneth are in an alliance with the Ideneth. I'm thinking, but I can get some Sylvaneth, but then I've got one of my friends doing Sylvaneth, so I might not. And I'm thinking about Caradron, but then I'm also getting there, but then there's Fire Slayers, and Fire Slayers look amazing. It'd be a real challenge painting proper rugged flesh for the first time, because I've never done that before. I'll be painting Elven flesh with the Ideneth, but I can paint proper Dwarven flesh with the Fire Slayers, and that'd be really, really fun. And then, but what about, you see what I'm going through here. And that's the fun, I've just got to break it down and work it through. But Ideneth are next. So get your punny titles in the comments if you're still here for Ideneth pun title project things, because I really want a good pun. And I really want to make a good one out of that. So that's next. So, in conclusion, thank you, all of you, so much for your time sticking out and joining me for a town called Mallus, this Warhammer Age of Sigmar hobby project for the Stormcast Eternals. Let me know what you think of the army in total. Let me know what you think of the paint scheme. Well, I'm just sure you've contributed to that before. Things that you think I should add going forward if I just want to add the odd unit here and there. Things that I could change going forward into a new project. What you're thinking for the Ideneth and all of those things. But more than anything, I'm just so thankful that you stuck it out. And if you watch the French version, then my God, you deserve a medal. So, thank you very much for watching, everybody. I really hope you've enjoyed this series. This has been Tactica, Imperialis, and this has been A Town Called Mallus. Thank you very much, and goodbye.